Lesson 97, finding geometric sequences. A geometric sequence has a ratio, a constant ratio between two consecutive terms. So, for example, 25, -5, 1, -0.2, and so on and forth. If I wanted to find the ratio, so if I want to find the ratio, I could do -5 over 25, or I could do 1 over -5. Or I could do -0.2 over 1, which is just -0.2. That's the ratio. So if I multiply each number by -2/10 or 1/5, I will get the next term. So the next three terms would be, I would take my last term, -2/10, times it by -2/10, and I get 4/100. Then I times 4/100 by -2/10, and I get a -8/1000. Then I times that by a -2/10, and I get a positive 16/10,000. Now there is a formula to find the nth term of the geometric sequence. So the nth term, we call a sub n, is equal to the first term times that constant ratio raised to the n-1 power. So a sub 1 is the first term. R is the common ratio. N is the place of the term you're looking for. So if I want the 20th term, then my n will be 20. So here's an example of finding the nth term. Find the 11th term of this sequence. 64, 32, 16, 8, and so on and so forth. So I want the 11th term, so n will be 11. My common ratio will be 8 over 16, or 1/2. And n sub 1 is 64. So I plug into this formula, a sub n, so a sub 11 equals, oops, that should be a sub 1 for the first term. Sorry, this n should be an a. Times a sub 1, which is 64. Then you take your common ratio, which is 1/2, raised to the 11 minus 1, or the 10th power. And that equals 625 10,000. Now, when R must be found, so when you are looking for R, first, like if you want to find it first, there may be two cases. Not always, but there may be two cases, depending on if an even or odd root must be taken. Therefore, there could be two possible values for the nth term. So I'm going to give you an example. For this case. I'm going to turn the page now. Memorize that last.
Not on the last sentence. Unless that's one big sentence. Okay, you can memorize.
No, you can't. It takes a while to get through this example, so you might want to leave space and we'll go back to it. There's actually two examples I have to do. Okay, so find a sub 1 of a geometric sequence given that a sub 5 is equal to 25 hundredths and a sub 8 equals negative 31 and 25 hundredths. So we're going to use this formula. A sub n equals a sub m r raised to the n minus m power. So that's if you're in the middle of your geometric sequence. You start with that, like if you have two terms right in the middle, you start with the first one and then times it by the rate raised to that power. This is going to help us find what r is. So we're going to replace n with 8 and m with 5 because the fifth term comes before the eighth term. So we're going to have a sub 8 equals a sub 5 r raised to the 8 minus 5 power. Now they gave us a sub 8 and a sub 5. So the eighth term was negative 31.25. The fifth term was 25 hundredths r cubed. So we divide both sides by 25 hundredths and we get negative 125 equals r cubed. We could take the cubed root of both sides and r is going to equal a negative 5. Now we have to find a sub 1. So we can just use maybe a sub 5. So we have a sub 5 equals a sub 1 r to the 4th power. So a sub 5 was 25 hundredths. We found we need a sub 1. Our rate was negative 5 to the 4th power. So we just do 0.25 divided by 625. So a sub 1 equals 4 10,000ths. And you would check it by using for 10,000ths for a sub 1, and then just finding the 8th term. So you would do so we could use our formula a sub 8 equals 4 10,000ths times -5 raised to the 7th power. And then you'll see that that's a -31.25. So our a sub 1 is correct. So you can always go back and check, which I highly recommend. Now, this example is where your rate could be a positive or a negative number, so you can have two answers. So we want to find a sub 7 of a geometric sequence given that a sub 2 equals 600 and a sub 4 equals 1350. So we'll use a sub n equals a sub m r to the n minus m. So we'll do our a sub 4 equals a sub 2 r squared. So we'll do 1350 equals 600 r squared divided by 600, which gives you 2.25. Then you take the square plus or minus the square root of 2.5. So r could be either 1.5 or negative 1.5. So they gave me a sub 2, so I don't have to really use any formulas to find a sub 1. I just either subtract, divide by 1.5 or divide by negative 1.5. So a sub 1 is either 400 or negative 400. So to find the 7th term, I'm going to do a sub 7 equals 400 or negative 400 times 1.5 to the 6th power. So I'm going to do plus or minus. So that'll give me two different answers. One will be positive, one will be negative. So it'll have the same absolute value. So a sub 7 equals plus or minus 4,556.25. And that's the end of the lesson. Holly?